Mic check 1 2. It's the Y2K collector, and let the Switch hunting begin. Much of the noise and hype that we've heard around the release of the Switch 2 has been heavily centered and focused on the console itself, with camps being divided between those who feel like the Switch 2 is an all new console with all new features, an amazing product worth every penny. And then you have the other camp who feels like the Switch 2 is just an unnecessary upgrade to something that we've already been enjoying for the past 7 to 8, however many years the original Switch has been out. And I think more than anything else, what a lot of people are waiting for is they're waiting to see more games release for the system. And not only are they waiting to see more games release, but they're really trying to wait and see how many games are going to come in a physical form where the entire game is actually on the cartridge. Because as many of you know, much of the controversy has been around the whole key card situation, and Nintendo pretty much sending us glorified game codes masked in this, cartridge that I guess is presumably transferable or you can sell, and that's fine, but it's left a lot of physical collectors feeling like it's not the real thing. And so, what I've heard and what I'm hearing and what I'm noticing is that a lot of people are rationalizing the use of the Switch 2 as a better way to play their Switch 1 games. And I think that this is also very interesting because there are a number of Switch 1 games that will not work on the Switch 2, but there are many that will. And so, what this has done, in a sense, has breathed a whole new breath of life into Switch 1 game collecting, because let's face it, there's really not much to collect for the Switch 2 at this point. And up to this point, the Switch 1, in the eyes of many, has become the most collectible console of all time. And rightfully so. There are a number of games available on the Switch 1, many of those being physical, and many of those games being complete on the cartridge. Now, don't get me wrong, there are a lot of Switch games that have been released, but after the fact needed patch updates. They needed, DLC was added, so on and so forth. And so not every single Switch 1 game comes complete, but we're seeing a much greater, a much higher level of completeness when it comes to the Switch 1 as opposed to the Switch 2. And this means a lot of people are now going to start turning their attention back to the Switch 1 for a number of reasons. One, we know that there's variable pricing associated with the Switch 2, which means that you're going to be paying anywhere between, $50 to $80 for certain Switch games, especially if they're first party Switch 2 games. What we've seen when it comes to the original Switch is that, we've seen games go as low as $15, $10, brand new. Now, of course, these are the cases when, it's like a holiday sale or there's a certain game that just goes on clearance. But a lot of Switch games, especially third-party Switch games, they typically fall somewhere in the $29.99 to $34.99 range, which when being compared to $60, $70, $80 price tags for Switch 2 games, these make the original Switch games look much more appealing in the eyes of collectors. For one, you're getting a lot more bang for your buck, especially when it comes to third-party games. You're getting the complete third-party game, all the DLC, and it's not nearly as expensive as what you would pay for a Switch 2 game, and you're able to play it on a console that presumably runs these games better. One of the best examples is Attack on Titan 2. Now, there's multiple versions of Attack on Titan 2, really two. You have Attack on Titan 2, and then you have Attack on Titan 2 Final Battle. So this is the version of Attack on Titan 2 that actually comes with all of the DLC actually on the cartridge. And this is a very popular anime. I'm not very much into the anime, but as far as the game itself, the game is a fun kind of hack and slash style game. It's a 3D game. And this would be the type of game, in my opinion, that might benefit from being ran on a more powerful console with better frame rates and maybe better response times because of the nature of this game. It has more of an open world 3D type of feel to it. It doesn't go for that hyper realistic look. It does have that animated type of anime feel to it. But for the type of game that it is and for what you're doing in this game, a game like this might benefit from the horsepower that you get out of the Switch 2. And the benefit of this is that even though it's third party, you have the entire game on the cartridge. So this is an example of what you can expect certain collectors to start to go after when it comes to building up their Switch/Switch 2 collection. Kind of see something similar here with Guacamelee 1-2 Punch. These are two amazing side-scrolling beat-em-up style games that have all of the DLC included on the cartridge. Another third-party game that we saw on the Switch 1, which this game is actually shot up in value, but it's a very fun game and you're getting everything on the cartridge. And so you don't have to worry about any type of keycard situation because this is a game that you actually have. No internet needed, no updates needed or required to be able to have both of these games in their entirety. Some of these other games that you're looking at here are more of the 2D pixelated kind of modern retro style games here that I'm not sure if Tevi's pretty recent. I want to say within the last year, Tevi came out. Gunlord X is an older release, but it's basically a port of a Neo Geo game. So there's really not much more DLC that you can expect to come from a Gunlord X unless they add additional features to it. But Gigantic Army and Golf Story are a little bit different. Gigantic Army coming from Pixel Heart, Golf Story being a limited run game. You know, we've heard things about limited run when it comes to the Switch 2 and the difficulties that the Switch 2 might have running limited run games. I haven't seen anyone attempt to do it, so I don't have any data or any examples on how that's going to go. But for all intents and purposes, if you're someone looking to build your Switch/Switch 2 collection, I can easily see many individuals going after more original Switch games just because of the bang for buck concept when you think about what you're going to be getting for the dollar amount that you're going to be paying. And so I think this is really interesting, at least for the first 6 months of the Switch 2's life cycle. Like I said, we haven't gotten much word about any third-party games coming complete on a physical cartridge, which is impacting many collectors, right? And I want you to remember that everything that I'm talking about through the lens of a collector, someone who likes to collect physical games. And I think if you're someone who, let's say maybe you never really had a large Switch 1 library to begin with, and you now have a Switch 2, because there aren't many options in terms of games that you can buy and play outside of, you know, some of the launch titles. The only launch title coming complete on a cart being Super Mario World, I could see this being an enticing factor for many Switch 2 owners to go back, actually to revert back to the Switch 1 library and see what games they can add that will run well on the Switch 2. So I think we may see somewhat of a revival in Switch 1 collecting. Not to say Switch 1 collecting has died off by any means. I think the collecting community for the Switch 1 is definitely strong, but I think this might have that type of effect on Switch 1 collecting. So let me know what you guys think about this. Do you think you're getting a better bang for buck when it comes to Switch 1 games? Obviously, it's very early in the Switch 2 life cycle. We need more time, right? We need to see what happens in the future. But I think, again, between now and when the Switch 2 starts to really build out their library, I do see the Switch 1 being a more appealing and attractive option for collectors. But let me know what you think about this in the comments down below, and I'll catch you in the next video. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.